So, thank you for giving me the opportunity to discuss D.P Sinha and Abhishek Sharan's fantastic new book, Operation Trojan Horse. It's been a gripping read, and in the middle of 2 weeks, 3 weeks now of struggling to write about Afghanistan, it's been a sort of very welcome presence on my bookshelf. And to snuggle up with at night. Congratulations on this book, Mr. Sinha and Abhishek. The first question I'd have is for you, Sinha sir.
Yes.
The book really starts in 1989, when times in Afghanistan were very, very similar to those they are now. You write in your introduction that the story begins in February 89, when the Soviet Union withdrew from Afghanistan. And of course, we're watching the Americans withdraw again. Can you tell us a little bit about what that story, both in terms of your fiction, meant, and what lessons this book has for us today, as we watch this story unfolding again?
Good evening, everybody. I have heard the question which Praveen has posed to me. Actually, when we started writing the book, I and Abhishek, we were not aware that we are going to have a full circle at the time of release of the book. We never thought that in my author's note, which I have mentioned, that the situation in Afghanistan was like ungoverned territory without any credible administration, and all the terrorist groups having a heyday with plenty of hardware and money and everything. So I never thought, even Abhishek was also not aware, that we will have the same situation in 2021 when the book is finally released. The situation is exactly the same of 1989, and we have seen what India had to face post-Soviet withdrawal, and the 2 decades, the late 90s and the decade starting from the millennium, we bore the brunt of Pak-based terrorism in the country.
Abhishek, I'm very curious, and I'm sorry my electricity's gone off, but it'll be back in just a minute.
Yes.
There, it is already. I'm very curious. As a reporter, of course, you saw many of these events. The story you tell in your book of terrorism from all these years, particularly the fascinating Indian Mujahideen story. You saw them firsthand as a journalist. Mr. Sinha saw them as an intelligence officer. How did it feel to be writing about them as fiction? And why did you choose this format rather than a straightforward repetition of what you had done as a journalist?
Yes, sir. So, thank you, sir. So, as a journalist, I was reporting about what has happened, and getting into getting behind the action and trying to find out what the investigation is like, and trying to get exclusive stories, special stories, getting behind the scene. But fiction, when we began on this project, Sinha sir and I, then this gave me an opportunity to explore the human side of the entire story, the story that begins from, as you said, 1989 until say around 2010. So it was a fascinating experience to try and create that whole a world that reflected the reality. So it was I like, apart from doing news stories, I used to do a lot of fiction, a lot of human stories as well, and this gave me the same kind of opportunity to like really dive deep into the human side of it. Because the way I treated it, it was like, I thought I'm like a camera which is there at the spot, and I'm watching everything. And I wanted the reader to get that feel that the reader should also be at the spot and just watch it unfold. We were not taking, as a writer, I was not taking any, I am not sitting in judgment over anything. I was just watching and recording and observing.
Can I add something, Praveen?
Absolutely, sir.
You know, the HarperCollins had approached me first for writing a non-fiction, which so many other officers have done. But then I had my own limitations because, the things which we deal and the circumstances which we have faced. It was not proper on my part to write what I saw in my long career as a security and counterintelligence and counterterrorism officer. It would not have been done justice to the job which I have done. But at the same time, I wanted to give a feel to the people of the country that what actually goes behind the scene and how are we able to prevent the terrorist attack which has been launched, which is launched with active assistance of our neighbor on our soil. So with that thing in mind, I thought myself and Abhishek, we thought that it will be a fiction inspired by true events. You cannot relate anything which is there in the book that it has happened like this. It is inspired. Somewhere at the back of my mind, I know that what I am writing, but I will not write what has actually happened. You know my predicament.
So, many, I think people who listen to this will be interested to know, and Abhishek will bear me out, that Mr. Sinha used to be known during his career for having an almost photographic memory. He's one of those rare people who you could call up and he would say, oh, this happened at 3 o'clock on such and such date, and know this amazing collection of names. I noticed with interest, though, sir, and I thought I'd get a perspective from Sinha Saab about this. When you're actually working on these real world cases, one of the interesting things about the book is you really get to know the characters from inside as people, not just as people in a terrorist group or so on. When working as an intelligence officer, do you develop that kind of relationship with the people you are working on? Do you feel that you get to know them as people and not just as criminals? Sinha Saab, if I may.
No. Actually, you in your career, you deal with so many types of people, right from hijacking of the Indian Airlines aircraft to multiple attacks at multiple locations in Mumbai. Every scenario is different. So you cannot compare that you have a group of terrorists who will repeat what they have done in one case in some other case. So as we used to treat them as events, not as people, because every event is a different, it has been planned at a different place, it has been executed with a different modus operandi. The people who have executed that, they belong to different background. Money has come from different places. So you cannot compare the incidents, you cannot compare the perpetrators. But one message which I have tried to give through this book is that you need patriots. This book is a story of 5 patriots. देशभक्त, you understand? जो अगर आप में देशभक्ति की जज्बा है तो आप मरने मारने के लिए तैयार रहते हैं. You don't care for your life. So these 5 principal characters who figure in this book are driven by that sort of drive that we have to do something for the country. And in the process, there is no guarantee that we will come alive. There is every likelihood that we will have to sacrifice our life in the lines of country. You understand?
No, absolutely. Abhishek, if I may, as a writer, this book covers a huge number of years, number of groups, terrain, characters who have these very complicated stories, and I don't want to give away the details early. But can you tell us a little bit about the challenges of organizing this material and turning it into what is a very, very, clear and a coherent read? Can you share a little bit about what that was like with this volume of material?
Sir, first of all, thanks a ton for your compliment. Coming from an esteemed journalist like you, and on the while covering terror and all, we have I have personally looked up to you, and we have all followed your work. So if you are complimenting, I'm really thankful to you. And so sir, on the beat, sir, we pick up a lot of things which mostly sometimes we cannot report. There are so many resources. There are so many things that we learn. There are so many things that we have seen. There are so many odd, stray interactions and interviews that we have done. All of that, I dived into that, those experiences, the depth of these experiences, and whenever, so essentially, I would check with Sinha sir, and so we used to have a short discussion about, okay, so this is it, and then I would then based on that I would develop my characters, and I would, for instance, some of them I absolutely used character from whatever I knew about while I was on the beat. So I used my own, apart from what he told me, I used my own experience and own all the accounts that we come across on this to create a story.
Sinha sir, I'm curious. Overseas there are a large number of former intelligence officials who have written fictional books about the world of espionage and intelligence. I can think of John Le Carre, Joe Weisberg, Karen Cleveland, number of others. But in India, to my knowledge, nobody from the world of intelligence, counterintelligence, has ever written a fictional book before. I'm just curious, were you interested in fictional work on the world of intelligence and terrorism? Were you yourself interested, or were you more of a non-fiction reader and too focused on your work to be reading fiction, just out of curiosity?
No, I'm telling you, in India, you have people who have written non-fictions, but to me, somehow, it doesn't gel. I feel that the things which I have done is something which cannot be disclosed, which can go in public domain. There are so many things which I have done cannot go in public domain, and it will be against ethical values, I can say. I have worked for a couple of decades in this field, and if I start telling everything, then then I will be not worth an intelligence officer to let people know everything. Something has to be protected, and something has to be, but at the same time, I wanted to give a feel to the people in general, that they should also feel that we are not superhuman beings. People whom we employ, or we are also human beings. We are using techniques, different type of techniques, different type of modus operandi to foil the terrorist attacks. Many people in general may not be knowing that how many terrorist attacks we have foiled. People come to know, oh, there was a terrorist incident, so many people killed. It was a total intelligence failure. We come to know only about that. But behind the scenes, what we are doing is hardly known to anybody. So it was an attempt on my part to give it in a fictional form, that this is a thing which we have, or we were close to attempting, like infiltration, the Trojan horse. Trojan horse, that is a Greek, it comes from Greek mythology. that when Pakistan is doing something, we also have done something, or we are supposed to do. But the main challenge is to find people. So there I come, we have to get deshbhakts. You cannot go on a street and if you tell, "Bhai, Pakistan jayega," nobody will be ready. So the real challenge is to identify the people who are ready to lay down their lives. Today, this book sends a message that we have to create a band of patriots who are willing to do everything for the country. For them, life does not matter. And if you read the motivational lectures which these operatives have been given at the time of launch, it also quotes Valmiki Ramayana, it also quotes certain other things. Janani, Janmin, Janmabhumi, you must have read. Ki everything is beyond Janani, and Janmabhumi is beyond everything. Ram is telling to Lakshman that Lanka may be Swarn Nagri. It can glitter. It is very valuable, but Janani and Janmabhumi is beyond that. So same thing I have tried for the Indian operatives, that they are driven by the force of protecting their mother and motherland.
Sir, if I may just follow that up with a question. In your book, the sacrifices made by the main characters are, of course, tremendous in various ways. I was just wondering, from your personal life as an officer, do you feel that intelligence officers, even not those necessarily in the field, that their personal lives are impacted negatively by the amount of work? Did you ever feel that, you described some of these events in 2008, 2007, earlier. Did your family, for example, ever feel that you were not able to give them enough time in a way you might have been able to in a different job? Can you speak a little bit to the experience of yourself and your colleagues?
Actually, sometimes it really affects. My wife has been telling, not always, but on certain occasions, she felt very, very nervous that what is, I will give you an example. You must be knowing that with 2 hours notice, I was asked to go to Kabul when the Indian embassy was attacked. At that time, it was not very welcome in the family that Indians are being attacked and you are going to Kabul. I don't know what will be your protection. So sometimes that happens, but then it is part of your job. When you have joined a service and you are doing something, you have to create something like that your family doesn't know much that what you are doing. So I was keeping the two sides totally different. I was not allowing my family to know what my professor, but there is a thing called mobile phone and telephone. At least you have to talk. You can, in your office, you can talk in privacy. But when you are at home, you are talking day in and day out about talking to so many people, telling them this has happened, we have to do this, we have to do that. So that the family comes to know. And I will tell my late mother, whenever I was doing some operation, she used to listen to my telephone conversation. And then she knew everything what I was doing. She will never ask me. But when something has been concluded, she will question me, have you done this? This happened like that. So she was only observing me. She was not interfering, but she knew what I am doing.
Abhishek, I just want to ask you the question I asked Sinha Saab also. We have, as I said, a lot of writing abroad by former spies, John Le Carre and number of others, but nothing in India. Are you a reader of spy fiction? Did you look to any of this other work for inspiration? Can you share a little with us?
Yes, I'm a big time reader of fiction, and like Frederick Forsyth, I've read a lot. Mario Puzo, but of course that's a different genre. But yeah, I mean, so Frederick Forsyth, Mario Puzo. I'm a great fan of John Grisham also, but okay, that's another genre. But yeah, Forsyth is there, and yeah. So the operation the book deals with. It's a fascinating operation right from the beginning. There is an encounter, and there's a 15-year-old boy who, when under pressure, he thinks he's cornered. And at a time when he thinks he's cornered, he wants to spring a surprise. So he said, our senior is already here, and he's here since a year, so we should hear from them. And that is how it all dawned upon the Indian security establishment that for the first time, Lashkar-e-Taiba, after they have already, after ISI backed groups like Dawood Ibrahim and all, they have, after the 1993 Mumbai blast, now Lashkar-e-Taiba has begun slipping in men who are supposed to stay in India forever. So from there, and then the whole process to look for that man who had attempted to begin a PCO shop in Old Delhi, and from there he just vanished without any trail. The whole process to find him, and then when they think of beginning this operation, then the search to get the right men, and for that they chose patriots who wouldn't think twice before putting their lives on line for the country. And the whole not only they were trained in depth, they also had to be stationed at places where they had to show their talents to the spotters, the talent spotters of the terror agencies. They had to attract their attention so that they can get recruited. So and then they get right into the layer of the other terror outfits. So let's hope, sir, we have our book would be an apt offering as far as the genre of spy fiction is concerned.
Sinha Saab, you mentioned about the need for India and its counterintelligence service to have patriots who are willing to risk all to fight back. There's a very interesting passage in the book, and again, I don't want to give away the story too much, but where the Lashkar-e-Taiba is quite upset with some of its Indian operatives for not showing enough determination and verve and also motivating people. Do terrorist groups also take a lot of effort to try and find the right people for the job, or is it relatively easy for them compared to the intelligence services?
No, it is, if you compare intelligence services, we have to first vet the person, that the persons whom we are selecting as a source or as a contact or as whatever duty he is assigned, he has to be totally vetted. And the biggest thing, we ensure that he should not be a double agent. Understand? If he is a double agent, then the whole game is finished. So we have to be extremely sure that if we select 10 people, 10 out of 10 will be khare hain. They are like diamonds. We do not take any chance. But that is not true with the terrorist groups. Even if they lose 8 out of 10, even if 2 persons are successful, their job is done. As it is told, you are aware of that they have to succeed once and we have to succeed 100 times. They can fail 99 times, succeed once, their job is done. We have to succeed 100 times. I have written about Margaret Thatcher in what IRS said in my foreword, that this is so they are not bothered even if 90% of their efforts fail. They are not bothered because they know that some days we will get success.
So, I mean, and not only from the book, but from the real life terrorists also that you came to investigate and came to know, what are most of their motivations? Is it religious? Is it hatred of India? What actually drives these terrorists to persist over such a long period of time? After all, they are also risking their lives.
It is very difficult to answer this question, because then I will be going into the realm of reality. So let it be a fiction and we will concentrate on the book itself only. Because every terrorist, I will give you a small example. A very senior hardcore terrorist, when he was caught, in his bag, he was having so many, that time it was CDs, So I thought that since he is a religiously motivated person, so I asked that, do you watch the jihad videos, jihad CDs? So then he said, sir, please don't watch that. I said, why? Like, sir, those are blue films. So, so I just gave you an example that otherwise it is a totally different, and in different cases, different things have happened. So I just gave you a taste that how we come across such persons.
I was wondering, Abhishek, as you wrote this book, knowing what you did about the real life cases, having as a journalist, did that become an obstacle for you in any way in telling the story? Because I noticed reading through the book that there are one or two places where there are some, interesting personal characteristics, personal stories that came in. How did you go about reconciling these two sides of your knowledge, as it were?
So, sir, when we are chasing a story, or when we are dealing with a subject as a writer to write a novel, to write a book, so you already, sometimes you have some things that you develop. It might be just a clue. It might be just a clue, and then you develop it, or you may have seen something else elsewhere, but that is pertinent to the case. So you use that experience as well. Like we were talking, as Sinha sir said about, spoke about that senior person who had stuff in his bag. I have, while reporting on counter terror, I have come across many accounts of terror suspects who got nabbed in high-profile cases, and when they spoke about their experiences in Pakistan, when they got trained there, some of them spoke at great length what all happened there, and and while they are talking about that, they are not only giving you a peek into the world that exists across the border, across the AOC. They are also talking about themselves. Like one of these accounts that I got, he said that they get up at 3 a.m. because their instructors say that 3 a.m. is the time when search and cordon missions happen elsewhere in Kashmir. So because that is their claim that these are missions to whatever. So in solidarity with that, you also need to get up and begin training at 3 a.m. But while doing research, the exercise itself through very interesting things that happen, even something like 26/11. Like at a time when bloodletting is happening, one of the senior terror commanders sitting in that Karachi 26/11 control room is asking Nariman House attacker that please take down this plain Urdu that I have noted down. So you also take it down. So this Nariman House attacker actually took down the shade that the Karachi-based commander dictated to him. And this shade is about how they are in the midst of operation, etc. We are the torch of justice and fair play, and everything else. We need to not only burn, we need to burn bright, and in the face of raging storm and all. So at a time when bloodletting is happening, this man is showing off his poetic skills. And then if you compare it to what the others were telling, they were instructing them to shoot at anything that moves. So one of the guys was telling his instructors that there's complete silence below, and I can't see any cops, I can't see any commando, I can't see any media person also. So then they asked, so what do you see? What can you see? They said, No, I can see some civilians who are peeking out from their windows, or they stand there scampering around on the roof and all. They said whatever moves, fire, fire maro, fire thoko. So somebody is asking his gunmen to shoot at anything that moves. The other commander is asking him to take down a share that he had noted down for the occasion. So, complete disregard for human lives. All the life of a human being is sacrosanct. It's sacred. I mean, and it has got, like, terror has got no religion, and in the same way, any human life is as sacred as the other.
Sinha, one of the things that was kind of interesting with the book is that it ends really with the tragedy in Mumbai, 26/11. After a long, complicated journey, and you also see how these groups have evolved, changed, the characters have changed. Did you ever feel frustrated in your career and while writing this book that in real life, the story may not have ended there? That the groups, the organizations like the Lashkar-e-Taiba who are in the story, even after all the effort that was put into fighting them, that they and the Pakistan ISI are still there and continue to pose a threat to India. Is that a matter of ever anger or frustration for you?
Actually, nothing ends. You are telling that it ended. That was a change in strategy. It was not that the Lashkar-e-Taiba or the Jaish-e-Mohammed or the Hizbul Mujahideen, they ceased to exist. But there was a change in modus operandi. You must have heard about the Indian Mujahideens. It was a total change in modus operandi. So the effect on the ground, it was the same. But the nomenclature of the group which was doing had changed. And it was a conscious effort on the part of our adversaries because of certain international pressures. And if God willing and time permitting, we will be dwelling on all those in our next book.
I'm just curious because one of the things this book speaks to is the enormous effort that goes into fighting terrorism, and that, as you say, we don't often talk about. What does it feel like at the end of 20 years of doing this, chasing down these people, to find that the threat is still there for another generation of intelligence officers to deal with? Is that a source of any frustration, or is this just part of life?
No, it is part of our professional life. We feel happy that we have been able to save lives of this number of people. That gives us enough satisfaction, because if you see history is full of such things. People have been massacred, people have been killed in hundreds and thousands. So the history is replete with these examples. But in our time, when we were in active service, at least we have been able to do our best, save lives of innocent people, frustrate the efforts of the terrorists. That gives us enormous satisfaction. And if we feel that we have not been able to do something, things are still continuing, we do not think that Ram Raj is going to come today and people will live without locks at their houses. We do not foresee any those situations in near future. But whatever we have done, we feel happy for that. At least personally, you know that how many lives you have been able to save. And when we think in hindsight, in retrospect, we felt that we had to take decision in split seconds, and those decisions could have either been savior of lives or loss of human lives. So we now feel sometimes that we were able to take such decisions I don't know if we had gone wrong, what would have happened, we don't know. So those things are there. But in hindsight, we feel good that at least we have been able to save lives.
Abhishek, a final question for you, and then I'll come back to Mr. Sinha. But I was curious, as a journalist who's reported on these things, do you feel Indian media does a good enough job of reporting on these issues, particularly the intelligence world and terrorism, having reflected on your, on the reporting, not just yours, but of other people over these years? Do you feel there are some different ways we could be telling these stories? And do you feel the intelligence community, there are any lessons to be learned from this, whether it should be more open in its interactions with the media or not? I'd be very curious for your reflections on these issues.
So I think one thing I must say that it was a great advantage to have Mr. Sinha sir as my co-author, because he, as you know, he is an acclaimed officer in the realm of counter-terror and intelligence. So so that's a great advantage. And as far as back to your question, I think even the book, the subject that it deals with, an operation like Operation Trojan Horse, that shows that our intelligences are up there. I mean, they do a whole lot of thinking that is out of the box, and they have the wherewithal, they have the resources, and they are able to marshal men, personnel, agents who are ready to put their lives on the stake. But for whatever reasons, most of these exploits, most of these feats, most of these achievements, and I'm sure these are second to none in the world, they're not so far, they're not much in the public domain. While that gives them also an advantage of being an unknown quantity, that has its own advantage a lot of times, because the adversary doesn't know what you're capable of. So that gives you that leeway and the space. But on the other hand, I think middle ground should be reached. The media should, there would be some who, in any case, would be, they might misreport or, but facts should be shared with media. The middle ground should be reached. The media, the people has the right to know, and media represents the people of this country. And so a middle ground should be reached at appropriate junctures. The media should be taken into confidence. They should be made aware of the facts. That would help, because that would help media also to bring out the right picture. Because right now, very little is known about how our security agencies work. While I'm not saying that the aspects that need confidentiality, that should be made, that those they should be revealed, but certain things that can be shared with media, they should be shared.
So I have a comment to make on the media, because of my long innings on the other side. We used to have the media, but what we really used to detest was the ball-to-ball commentary of events. It used to affect our work very, very adversely. I am using the phrase ball-to-ball commentary. And with the mushrooming growth of different media houses, both electronic and print, people are there to take credit that I should report first. So in that process, you report so much of trash that people are confused. We are there at the ground, on the ground, to see what has happened, and so many things are reported which we all debate that how this thing has happened. We have not seen, but media, it is coming in the media. So those things, the media has to be very, very responsible. I will give you a small example. It happened during the hijacking of the Indian Airlines plane from Kathmandu. One electronic media was reporting that at the same time, a Pak international airlines aircraft was also there in the at the Kathmandu airport. A bag full of weapons was offloaded from that aircraft and it was loaded to this aircraft. So all these things came in very responsible and respected electronic media. So these things the media should avoid. Why to take credit? Do you think that if you're reporting such irresponsible things, people are going to give you credit? Because today or tomorrow, people will come to know the truth. But it damages the investigation and the future planning of the law enforcement agencies. So my message to media is like this.
So if I may add, sir, sorry.
Sorry, please go on, Abhishek, please.
So, sir, the experience also shows that the at a time when a lot of terror outfits they try to mislead youth, they trap the gullible minds. There is a need for media as well, and to bring out the correct narrative. So, at a time when they are trying to mislead, there should be the correct narrative as well, because if you put out the facts, then less people would get misled.
No, but let me tell you that for that we have to be very responsible. If you see any attack in Europe or US, you see how the media reports. They are very restrained. They are going only on facts and all those things. And whatever they are showing, it is not live they are showing. You must have seen in case of 26/11, media was showing live. And that was giving the clue to the handlers who were sitting in Pakistan. So do you think that our media is responsible enough to be shared, to be told everything?
Yeah, I agree with you. Responsible restraint should be there. Like the experience of 26/11 suggested that they were watching and they were benefiting from the live coverage. They were instructing the gunmen that तुम्हारे खिड़की के नीचे मीडिया वाले खड़े उनपे ग्रेनेड they were saying उनपे ग्रेनेड डालो, उनपे ग्रेनेड फेंको. So they were watching, they were benefiting from the live coverage, and they were instructing their men to throw the grenades at media persons who are standing below. So later on, I think a day or two later, it was decided that perhaps
delayed coverage.
Live coverage would get staggered.
It was delayed.
Staggered. So that was the correct decision. Perhaps within hours of the attack, I think it should have been done. Nobody can question that, because it's about saving lives.
I want, as a final sort of question, I wanted to ask. I mean, it's fantastic that you're working on a second book, and I hope it will not be too long before you do it. But on this whole question of these stories, many intelligence agencies abroad, the CIA, MI5, in fact, have an office of an official historian who, after lapse of certain number of years, the files are opened up for that institution.
Yes.
And both the criticisms of those who made mistakes are recorded, but also the achievements of those who, did service for their countries are recorded for future generations. Both the bad and the good are dissected. The Ministry of Defense, in fact, has commissioned some exercises like this in the past. And recently we had an announcement from the Raksha Mantri that the archives would, again, after lapse of whatever number of years, they would be opened up for researchers and others. In your view, eventually, would some sort of similar provision for the intelligence services be good, so that we don't have to rely on this wonderful fictional book, but also somewhere in our national memory record the names of those who did things for this country at risk to themselves?
Now, what you are telling is correct theoretically, but how we are going to implement it, or what our country, how they are going to, what you told about the Honorable Raksha Mantri, I am not aware, but something should be done. And I don't know there are any immediate plans of what you are mentioning. If that is done, it is well and good, like the Western agencies. but they are very enlightened people. The recording, etc. I don't know how it will take shape in our Indian context. It is very difficult. So I don't want to make any comment on that subject.
So thank you so much for your time, Sinha Saab and Abhishek. And I really hope in these COVID times, we are having to discuss things. So even if you're nervous about going to Oxford Bookstore and buying a physical copy, I got mine on Amazon. I'm sure there are other digital retailers who are selling it. And if you're locked up at home in the evening, it's a really entertaining and even for my colleagues, I should say, knowledge-giving read, because some of it is very, very, very close to reality. So you'll truly enjoy it. Thank you for your time. And I can only say that I'll be looking forward to the next volume covering the years between 2611 and today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you, Abhishek, and I must thank Oxford Books for organizing this meeting. And let us see how the book fares in the market, and then we will see about our coming next project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.